Okay, welcome everyone to today's Google Webmaster Central Office Hours Hangouts. We have a special guest today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hi everyone. This is Syed Malik. I'm visiting from Hyderabad, India, and I'm really excited to be here, especially with John in this hangout.
All right. Yeah, it's good to have you here.
Great. Thank you.
You do these hangouts in
Yes,
India
we
as
do.
well.
We do these hangouts in office hours hangouts in India as well, and that is bilingual basically, specifically for webmasters in India and the surrounding regions. So if people have questions in either in English or even in Hindi, then we cater to that audience.
Wow,
Great.
that's always awesome. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Are there any new faces here that have a question that they've had on their mind for a while now?
Hello, John. First, I would like to make a suggestion for a future Hangout. Since we have read that probably in a few weeks there will be a Panda update, I was wondering if somehow could be a show, a Hangout that would tell us common mistakes that caused the motions and recommended practices to promote recoveries of sites that have been affected by these updates. Well, that is my suggestion. Well, now my question would be, it seems there was a quality update past month. Is it somehow related with Panda? Is it the same thing? Is it different? Can you clarify anything about that?
So I think first off to recommend the suggestion for talking a bit more about what we consider high-quality sites. I think that's a great thing to do. That perfect idea. Yeah, we should probably do that. Regarding the update that happened, it was I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that. That was essentially just an update of our normal algorithms as we make them over time. So this is part of our core algorithms that were just updated. Usually we make lots of updates in these kind of algorithms, and they kind of get diluted across the year. I think for one reason or another, this specific update just was a little bit more visible than the other ones. But essentially, this is something that we do all the time. We make thousands of updates in our algorithms every year.
Yeah, can I just ask a second question related with that? For sites that have been updated, somehow affected by these Panda or quality updates, would it help to somehow mark as no index pages that for some reason are not getting Google traffic from for at least a long time, maybe months, since we can get somehow that information from the Google Webmaster Tools API? Would that be a good idea? Or?
I think that probably depends a bit on your website. Using just the traffic from search as an indicator for the quality of the content might work sometimes, but I wouldn't say that this is the main way that you should be looking at the quality of your content. Because otherwise, if you start with a new website, it doesn't get any traffic from search. You can't no-index everything just because it doesn't get any traffic. So I think sometimes it helps to look at the pages that don't get any traffic, but I wouldn't assume that you need to remove those pages just because they don't get any traffic. Maybe people just rarely look for them, and that can be perfectly fine.
Okay, I have other questions, but I think I have to leave the others to also ask their questions.
All right. Do we have any of the other new faces with questions? Otherwise, we can get started with the ones that were submitted. So let's see. We have one here. Our site has many subdomains. When uploading the file containing the links we want to disavow, is it better to create a single file for all subdomains or mini files for each subdomain individually? So it's not really a matter of better or not. In a case like this, you need to upload it per subdomain. So it really needs to be on the subdomain where you have those links, or where the links point that you want to disavow. If a site with subdomains gets a manual action, is it better to present a single reconsideration request or many requests for each subdomain?
Yeah, I think again, you will have to file. So, for example, if you get a manual action on your subdomain, then you'll have to file a request for that subdomain. Right, because the penalty may be, I mean, the manual action may be only on that one subdomain. So, yeah.
Okay. So, first up, yeah.
Is there an exception when we're talking about non versions? Are those considered subdomains? And what about protocols as well, like HTTP, HTTPS?
Yeah, I think www and non-www versions are considered probably the same. So you need not file separate reconciliations for those versions.
Also HTTP and HTTPS
yes.
too.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, here's one about structured data. What are the negative consequences of applying incorrect structured data markup? If I'm not sure about the markup to use for an entity, should I not apply any markup or go ahead with what I feel is the best fit? This is, I guess, a tricky one.
Yeah.
So I guess from a rich snippets point of view, you really need to make sure that you're complying with the guidelines that we have for rich snippets. So if you use structured data for rich snippets, you really need to watch out for that. If you use structured data just to let search engines better understand your pages, then there are no hard rules there. So sometimes it's kind of unclear, should I do it this way or that way? And just marking up definitely helps us more than not marking anything up.
Yeah, and I think if the code is not correct, it is definitely not going to affect the ranking, right? Because this is not a ranking factor. So even if you have marked up your content or not, this is just not going to affect your ranking in any way.
Yeah. Several articles from dividend.com are showing the video snippet. There's an example. Is this a Googlebot issue? I think this is probably on our side where we're recognizing something on a page and we think it's a video and we try to show a video snippet for that. So I'll definitely pass that on to the video team here so that they can take a look at that. So it's not something that you need to manually suppress or change the URLs or anything crazy like that. Another one about structured data. After embedding structured data for site links, search boxes, and testing them in the developer tools, we're waiting for the changes in the search results. Can you tell us about the indexing and the time it takes for that?
Yeah, I think there is no definite timeline that we can actually talk about. And also, one thing to note is that it is not a guarantee that the structured data reflect in the search results after we apply. So it depends here. It really depends if it shows in the search results or not. If you're sure the code is correct and that it's implemented correctly, I think that is good enough.
Yeah, I think with the site link search box, you can kind of tell if we would show it if we would show the existing site link search box, so the one that goes to Google search. And if we show that, then that's a pretty good indicator that we'll probably pick up your markup if we find it. And usually this takes a couple of weeks. So it's not something that's immediate, and it's not something that takes like a manual button push, but it just takes a while. So I'd really, first of all, make sure that you have it technically implemented properly, and then I just leave it running. And if we can pick it up and show it, that's great, but we can't guarantee that we'll be.
Yeah.
Hey John, since you're talking about structured data, did you get any follow-ups on that issue with my client who has breadcrumbs and the home breadcrumb is an icon or has display none on the anchor?
Don't have any update for you there yet. Sorry.
But as a best practice, is it a problem if I just don't use the breadcrumb for the home? So for the first element of the breadcrumb, which is usually the home thing, because in the examples on the developer support, page, they don't really show for the home element. It's usually goes like dresses, elegant, so on. So it's not on the home element usually.
I don't know for sure. That's a good point. Yeah, but maybe we need to make our documentation there a little bit more consistent. But I need to wait to see what the team says about that, and depending on that, we can do one or the other.
Okay.
Hi, John.
Hi.
While on the subject of structured data, on the Google Structured Data Tester, it defaults to the country language you're in, or it seems to for me anyway. I'm based in Thailand. When I go to use it, it defaults to Thai language, even if I change the language in the bottom. And the only way I can get it to work is if I put in the parameter for English at the top. Are you aware of this bug?
That should be kept like as a setting, like as a cookie on your side. So you're saying every time you go there, it resets to Thai instead of using the setting that you previously selected?
Yeah, well, it's never been in English, I don't think. So if I go on it, it's all in Thai language. If I scroll to the bottom of the page where the language setting is, I put that in English, it refreshes, but it's still in Thai. I've tried clearing the cache and my cookies, and it still seems to have the same bug. And I think someone had a similar issue when I was looking through the Google Webmaster support forums as well.
Okay. Let me try to add a note here so I can take a look at that. Just a second. Okay, listen to me type. All right, yeah, I can pass that on to the team. That definitely shouldn't be happening. What you can probably do in the meantime is just bookmark the version with the HL equals EN parameter at the end of the URL, but it should definitely be picking up the language setting if you're changing that. Okay, here's one about app deep links. App deep links are pretty cool nowadays. So essentially, app deep links is when you link your Android app to your website, and we can show a direct link to your app in the search results for people who have your app installed. So the question here is, are there any plans to roll out app deep linking to other browsers like mobile Safari? Also, if we have separate mobile and tablet apps, how do we declare deep links on our website? I'm not aware of specific plans for other browsers, but I'm sure the team is looking at broadening that a bit. With regards to tablet and mobile apps, I think that's kind of almost like a loophole at the moment in that we don't cover that specifically. So if you have separate apps for your mobile phone and your tablet, then at the moment you probably need to link to your mobile apps, not the tablet app. But it's a good point. And I guess the easy solution is just to have one app that works both on smartphone and on tablet. But sometimes that's easier said than done, right? But I'll double check with the team on that actually to see if we can make that clearer in the documentation.
Hey, John. While on the subject of deep links, I noticed something was broken the other day as well. You know the deep link tester where it gives you the QR code and you can test that? It looks like you've updated your URLs, but you haven't redirected the old URL to the new one. So I was trying to test my deep links the other day, and the old page is broken, and it took me a couple of hours to find the new version of the page. So you might want to be aware of that as well.
Okay. That's not that cool, yeah. Okay, I'll double check that. Here's a theory about backlinks. I think we hear theories about backlinks all the time. I have a theory about backlinks that they have a diminishing marginal value. So once my site reaches some threshold, it stops being a big factor and becomes more of a hygiene check. Am I correct? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think, I don't think there is any threshold that we look at. Ranking is like pretty dynamic. It is based on, as we say, like more than 200 plus factors. And, backlinks is like the page rank is one of those 200 plus factors. So it is, I think this is just a theory, as we hear so many theories. So people have a lot of theories, but I think that this is definitely not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the 200 signals part is really important here because you don't need to have like the same level of backlinks as everyone else. So if you're a small site, if you're active in a specific niche, you don't need to have the same backlinks as everyone else. We look at a lot of different signals, and for some sites, when we show them in search, we might look more at the links. For other sites, we might look more at the content. For other sites, we might look at a mixture of various signals. So it's not the case that you really need to like fill up your backlinks until that threshold hits, and then you're fine. We try to really balance the signals that we look at and make sure that we get a balanced view of the website, and that includes everything.
I think it really, I mean, if we start focusing only on the backlinks aspect, then we would never be able to show the new websites in the search results ever, you know? So we have to look at so many different things to determine the best set of results.
We have few backlinks after 7 years as we're niche, but if a site links to us in what appears to be a natural way, but actually some bad links are also within this profile, does this bad link juice pass downstream to us as well? If so, do we disavow all links? So if a problematic site links to you, that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's no like negative PageRank that's passed to your website. But of course, if you see unnatural links that maybe a previous SEO put out there, or maybe an SEO who's trying to help your site in a bad way, then that's something you'd want to take action on. But just because there's also something problematic on another site, that's not really a problem. Let's see, let's take some of these down here. Does Google consider using the same text-heavy image multiple times on the same domain to be duplicate content? It's purely done for UX because 95% of our website's organic visitors will not benefit from it if we were to restrict it to a single page. So I'm not really sure what the site is actually doing. It sounds like you have one big image that you're showing on a lot of the pages, and essentially we see these as images on the pages. It's not something that we would see as being problematic. But of course, if this is a big kind of an advertisement that's shown above the fold, that's shown before your actual content, then that can be kind of sneaky for you users, because they go from search, they try to look at your content, but all they see is this big banner advertising on your page that's not really matching what they're actually looking for. So they feel almost misled by Google to be sent to this page that doesn't give them what they were looking for. But there are also legitimate reasons to have like a banner image on top. Maybe if it's your company logo, for example, or something like that, then you'd want to have that on top. It wouldn't be a gigantic image in a case like that, but you could do that. So it's not something where I would say, in general, you need to avoid this, or you need to do this, or it has no effect. You kind of have to look at what the site actually does with those images. Let's see. Cookie law. That sounds dangerous. About the cookie law, I will have a privacy page with extensive text in it, and this page is linked from all website pages as required by the law. It's also the first link on the top banner as requested by the law. Will the spider be considered as most important? What would you say there?
Okay, I think I'll have to go through the question once again.
So I think what's happening is you have a page about a legal topic, for example, a disclaimer, something like that, and you link to it from all pages, and you also have a link way on top of the page from all of your pages, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, we understand that websites are built like this sometimes. Sometimes you have an about page, or you have like a privacy policy that's linked from all pages, and that's perfectly fine. That's not something you have to hide or something that would cause any problems. Oh, wow, more app indexing questions. Now that Google supports iOS and Android app indexing in search, don't you think websites get less traffic from search, as now people will install apps and manage from the app itself? The organic traffic share now moves to apps. I guess this is almost a philosophical question. Like, what will people do in the future when people have more apps installed? From my point of view, I don't see this as a null-sum game. So it's not the case that people are moving from your website to an app. But maybe more people have the app installed, and they would see your content more just because they have the app installed. And the people who go to your website still have your website in the search results. So it's not something that means you shuffle your traffic around. But at the same time, if you're a company that has an app and that has a mobile website, it's worth considering it as more as one unit rather than saying, well, this app is run by the marketing department and the website is run by IT. And if we get traffic to our website, then that's good for IT and bad for the marketing department. You shouldn't see it as that. It should be that people are visiting your content and they want to do something with your company, with your services, with whatever you provide. And if they go through the app, that's great. If they go through the website, that's great. It's not something where you should feel bad or feel like this is a problem if people shuffle a different way to your company. It's almost like adding a backdoor to your business, and you see people lining up back there too. You don't want to like block them from coming to your business. You want to welcome them and treat them as you would any other kind of potential customer to your content. All right, let's see, what do we have here? About Panda, we've made some changes on the website. Till which date are changes considered from Panda? It's tricky because we don't really pre-announce these things that far, and essentially when you make changes on your website, we have to crawl and index them, and that's something that just takes time. It's not from one day to the next, and if you make changes like a day before one of these algorithms data updates, then that's probably not going to be reflected. If you make changes a week before, maybe part of it will be. If you make changes even further earlier, then more of that will be reflected. But in general, if you know that your quality of the content is low, then you want to fix that as early as possible. You don't want to wait for some artificial algorithm to update. You want to make a great website. You don't want to like leave people hanging on something that you know is low quality. We've implemented site search schema, social icon schema, and event schema. They've been tested well in the testing tool, and it's been a good time, but we still don't see them in search results. So I guess this kind of goes back to your earlier point.
Yeah, really. I mean, it may take some time for us to like basically crawl and understand your content, and then reflect that in the search results. So I think I would probably wait some more time and see if it reflects.
And also, it's something that's not guaranteed. So just because you add this markup doesn't mean we'll always show it. And sometimes what also happens is that our algorithms look at the website and they say, well, we don't really know if we can actually trust this website completely. And in a case like that, they might say, well, they have markup here. We could show it, but we're not going to show it this time because we don't really know if we can trust this website. So if you think that your website is somehow in a situation where there's a lot of mediocre content or stuff that's not really that awesome, then that's something I definitely fix. I wouldn't assume that you can improve the quality of the website by adding structured data. That's something that's completely separate, actually. It's different from the privacy page. OK, this I think goes into the previous page about the cookie. Should I use a nofollow for a page like that? No, you don't need to use a nofollow for something that's linked across your site. Something like a privacy page, an About Us page, that's a perfectly normal link on a page. And we understand that these websites are built like this. And it's not that if someone searches for your brand, then suddenly we'll just show your privacy page in the search results. We have a lot of experience crawling websites that have natural structures. No need to hide that from anything. Does the crawler crawl all available links on a page, specifically if this number is really high, like 400 or 500, or does it simply start ignoring links completely at some point?
Yeah, I think we try to crawl as much content as possible, but it's not necessarily that we crawl everything at once, right? So our crawlers may get back because we also don't want to overload your servers. So we take care of that as well. But of course, we want to crawl as much content that is possible that we can, because we want to reflect that in the search results to our users when they're searching for it. Yeah, I think we definitely do not ignore content which may be valuable to our users.
Yeah, I think Matt Cutts did a blog post probably like 5 years or so back, where he linked every word in a blog post, and it's like hundreds of links. And that's something we follow those links. It's not that we just stop reading the page when those links are there. If we can, we'll try to follow those links and get to that content. So it's not something I'd artificially limit, but at the same time, I'd also try to find some reasonable amount of links on a page, because if you have hundreds of links on a page, chances are users don't really know what to do either. How does rel-next previous markup really work? Will Google crawl and index all pages and merely treat the first page as canonical? How it really works is really kind of hard to tell, because that's something our engineers implemented in code. With regards to the first page as canonical, no, that's not what it does there. You can use a rel canonical together with rel next and previous. There's also, I think, the way to specify the page that has everything on it. So if you have a multi-part article, maybe you have one page that has all parts on one page, you can also specify that. But essentially, we try to treat this group of pages as a group of pages that belong together. So it's no specific action that our algorithms do, but we try to kind of group them together. And if someone is searching for something that fits into this group, we'll show one of those pages, because we kind of know that this group kind of works well together. More schema.org, markup pages. How long does it take Google to read rating schema and update the same under the URL? So I guess it's the same as before. Sorry to keep having you answer the same question. Yeah. If you implement it properly, that's great, but there's no guarantee that we'll actually show it in search results. So you might need to wait, or you might want to think about your site and think about what you could do to improve it overall.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, going back, looking at your site. I mean, if it's been a while after you have implemented schema and it's correctly implemented, and if it is not showing the search results, maybe you may want to go back and look at the content in your website and improve the user experience as such for users. Yeah.
All right. How about a 2-language website? I'm thinking about creating 2 completely separate websites with 2 domains and 2 hosts. Also, for easier managing, is it a correct procedure? Will it affect ranking? Will it be better to have everything under a single domain?
Yeah, I think it really doesn't affect your ranking having 2 different domains or having a subdomain on the same websites for a different language. I think what should make you determine this is your business need and how you're going to manage these websites. I think there is no effect whatsoever on ranking how you structure your website, like either single host, 2 hosts, or single domain or 2 separate domains, right? But I think implementation of the href lang tags is something that you can do to help us understand your content better, and the 2 different versions of those languages, which is definitely you should look into.
Yeah, totally agree. One thing I might add there, from a practical point of view, if you have multiple websites, that's also a lot more maintenance than if you have just one website. So that's something to kind of think about in the long run as well. It's not that you're getting any kind of SEO advantage, like you said, but if you have multiple domains and a lot more maintenance to keep that up, then maybe it's not worth it. Maybe it is worth it for you. You kind of have to think about that as well. How does Google treat subdomains? Each subdomain have its own reputation authority level, or do subdomains merely inherit authority from the root domain? So I guess authority is this vague concept that we don't really have as like the page rank in the toolbar where you can like see the authority of the page, and it's really hard to kind of, I don't know, put in words what that might mean or what you would consider that to include. From our point of view, you can use subdomains, you can use the same domain. It's essentially pretty similar. And with regards to authority, I think that's something more that almost your users would look at and say, well, this is the same business, and I trust this business, therefore I trust what I'm seeing here. Or does it look like a completely different brand or completely different business on the subdomain? Then maybe they'll say, well, this new brand, this new business has to earn my trust first, and then I'll treat it as an authority. So it's kind of something I'd focus more on the user side than on the search side.
And I think it also depends on the content that you have on your pages. So basically, ranking works per pages basis. Basically, if you have a very good reputed organization or a company, and you have a website of that, but you have not great content on one of the subdomains, so it doesn't mean that your that content is automatically going to rank because you have a good reputation of your website overall. So it doesn't mean that.
I demoted a few site links from my site a few weeks ago from Google search results, but I still see those site links in search, and it's bad. I don't like that. What can I do to remove the site links?
I think, I think again it takes some time for us to process this request. I think eventually they should go away from the search results.
Yeah, I think a couple weeks is probably on the short end. You probably need to wait a little bit longer. But the thing also to keep in mind is that the setting in Webmaster Tools is essentially to demote those site links. So we're less likely to show them, but we might still show them in situations where we think it really makes sense. So what I would do there is, if these site links are really problematic, in that they really mess things up for your website, they look really bad for you, then I post about that in the help forum so we can pick it up and pass it on to the team from there. And if these are really just really bad pages that you're seeing as site links there that you don't want to have indexed at all, maybe putting a no index on them instead is a better solution than trying to like hide them from the site links. But it kind of depends on what you're seeing there. How can we track data from app indexing in Google Analytics? Can we track it in App Analytics or Website Analytics? I want to make sure that organic traffic is being attributed correctly when people are clicking the app indexing option in the search results. So there's a way to get the refer for app indexing. So if you go to the app indexing documentation, you search for a refer, you can get the refer from there, which is either pointing at the search results page if it was in a browser, or the Google search app if you're doing it, if the user is searching through the Google search app. And there's also a way to see the user agent when Google is crawling the app. So if there's something specific that you need to do to kind of suppress Googlebot crawling from playing with your statistics, then you can recognize that through the kind of a user agent in the app indexing SDK. So those are essentially the options at the moment. You don't see which queries were made, so you basically just see did it come through the browser or through the Google search app. You can see the queries in Search Console. So if you go to the search query data, you will also see the search query information for your app there. So which locations people were searching from, which keywords they were using, which parts of your app did they end up on. All of that you can find in the Search Analytics report. OK. Let's see. Let's take some questions from you guys in the audience here in the meantime. There's still a few questions left, but...
Can I ask some of my remaining questions?
Sure.
Well, I have a couple of types of pages that for some reason are appearing in Google when I type site : and this is odd because I didn't meant them to be there. Like pages, for instance, I have a page, recommend this page to a friend, and then it points to some page, and then there's a parameter question mark and the value of the URL of the page to recommend. And these pages are in the Google index. I tried to block them on robot text, but they are still there, and I can't remove them with the removal tool because they are not under a directory. They would have to be somewhere with slashing the URL. How can I somehow remove them? I have them blocked in robots text. Is it a bad idea to keep the robots text blocking them?
Yeah, so if you block robots text, then we can't crawl them. So we can't see that you don't want them indexed. So that's probably one aspect in play there. So for instance, if you had a no index meta tag on these pages and they're blocked by robots, then we can't see that.
Yeah, so what should I do to...
I would unblock them in robots text and put a no index tag on them and just leave them alone and let them be crawled. At some point they'll be recrawled and they'll drop out of the index then. If you want to speed that up, one thing you can do is a sitemap file and say these are URLs that recently changed, specify the change date, and we'll go through, recrawl the URLs in your sitemap file, and drop them out if they have a no index.
Yeah, but the problem is that I don't know how many are there of them, because in the Webmaster Tools stats appears like more than 100,000, and in my sitemaps I have less than 10,000. So there are many pages that went there and were never meant to be indexed. So I wonder if the removal tool could allow, for instance, question mark to be a directory separator and instead of so you can specify a pattern, not necessarily a directory. Well, that is a suggestion for improvement of it.
I don't think we would do that because the more complicated we make the removal tool with those options, the more likely people will use it accidentally or incorrectly.
I see.
So it kind of depends on your URL structure. If you have like a path and a file name and then question mark and then some parameters, you can specify everything up to the file name, for example, in the removal tool and say it's a directory removal, even if it's not a directory. But then it'll remove all variations that have like the question mark and all of that. But if the path and the file name are different for every URL, then that's not something you can really specify in the URL removal tool.
Actually, I tried that, but it didn't seem to have worked. When you put question mark something, because it doesn't consider to be a directory. I think it expects the slash to be somewhere in the.
I think it just. I think it just needs the file name part. So you have like directory / my.php, and then it'll see everything that's below, which is not really below, but everything that starts like this as a directory and use that. But I don't know what happens if you use like a question mark in there as well, if that works there too. But it's
well, I tried that too, but it didn't seem to work.
Yeah, I mean, this is something where if you have really a ton of pages like this and you don't want them indexed, I would just put a no index on there and not worry about them anymore. If they'll get crawled at some point in the next couple of months and fall out, they wouldn't have a negative effect on your site anyway. That's not something I'd really think.
John,
another question.
Is that something that he should use, not use the parameter tool for?
You can use the parameter tool for that too, but if they're already indexed, then I don't think it would speed up the removal. It would help to prevent them from being indexed if you know that you don't want this kind of parameters to be crawled, but it wouldn't remove them from the index.
Yeah, the other question that I had is related with pages that are meant for logged users. So Google's not supposed to be indexing those pages. So what is the recommended way to put that? Shall I put it in that page when Google finds it? Should it find a no index, or should it be like a 4 or 1, if I'm not mistaken, response status? Or this page requires authentication?
It kind of depends on what you want to do there. So a no index or 404 or 401 will work if you don't want that page indexed at all. But for example, if it's a tool that you provide on your site and you want people to find that tool, and just because it's a login page that comes up first, you probably don't want to no index that. So for example, if you search for Webmaster Tools, you'll get a page that leads to our login page. But that's something we want to have indexed because we want people to find Webmaster Tools even though it goes to a login page. So in a case like that, you kind of want to provide almost a snippet of information on the login page and let the login page be indexed. So I think the Webmaster Tools login page has this little text on the side that says, hey, Webmaster Tools is awesome. You should sign up and use it too, or I don't know what the text actually is. But that way, we can get this login page indexed. People can find it in search, and that's fine. But on the other hand, if it's really private content, if it's like someone's webmail inbox or something like that, then you don't want that indexed at all. You don't want someone like search for John Mueller's inbox and to find like a login page leading to John's inbox in the search results. So that's something where you probably just want to put a no index or 404, 401 on those pages to completely prevent them from being indexed.
Yeah, what happens is that it appears in the soft 404 errors. Those pages, they keep appearing, and is that a bad thing? Why does it appear there if I did not mean Google to index them?
That's fine. That's perfectly fine. I mean, the soft 404 basically means we didn't see a 404 on these pages, but we're treating it as a 404. And if you as a webmaster think, well, I wanted this content indexed, then you could fix that. But if you say, well, this is fine, this is the way it's supposed to be, it shouldn't be indexed, then you can just leave it like that.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I guess we'll go through some more questions that were submitted. If any of you have anything that comes up in between, feel free to raise your hand or speak out loud. What's the best way to improve site authority? Does producing great content alone help increasing the authority of a site? Like I mentioned before, this is really something more on the user side. It's not that we have an authority rank or anything like that where we would say, well, this is an authority or this isn't an authority. So think about what would work for your users and look at the authority that they give you, not focus on what search engines would do. More app indexing question. App deep links, does Google support applinks.org for deep links? Right now we have the Android app notation as well as the Android URL, and then Open Graph, all very redundant. As far as I know, we don't support that at the moment. So we essentially support what we have in our SDK in our documentation. I suspect that in the very long run, some of these will converge into a common standard, but at least at the moment, it's a little bit more work. What's the URL for the penalty server again? Yeah, sorry. We don't talk about like soccer and tennis games, so you have to find your own server that gives you information about the penalties that show up there. In real estate websites, images and videos are very much important to users than too much content. So how can we optimize these websites as Google algorithm needs more content for relevancy, not just images and videos for ranking in search results? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I think if I understand the question correctly, basically they have a lot of images and videos on their websites and how they want to optimize this. I think it is important for you to probably mark up this content and also provide information in text that is crawlable, information about metadata about these images and videos that we can crawl and understand. And also, submit sitemaps with information about these things, the metadata and stuff. I think those are the things that can help Google understand your content and rank it accordingly.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps understand the images and videos a bit better, so I'd certainly do that. But at the same time, we do focus a lot on text. So if there's absolutely no text on these pages, then that will be really, really hard. So you do need to provide some kind of text so that we can understand the context of these images and videos a lot better. And that could be things like addresses, that's text as well, attributes about the individual properties that you have. It's not that it needs to be a paragraph of text. It doesn't need to be an essay that someone wrote. But it needs to be some textual information that we can use to rank these pages. And that's something that I see quite a bit from websites where they have something that looks really nice, and they know they want to rank for certain topics, but they don't actually mention those words on those pages. So if there's something you really want to rank for, then you probably want to put those on your pages somewhere so that we can pick that up and be clear that, oh, this page is really about this topic. We should actually do that. So that sometimes happens, for example, if you have a small business, a restaurant, you have a really nice website that has these marketing type phrases on top, but it doesn't actually mention this is a restaurant in Zurich. And then people searching for a restaurant in Zurich, they won't actually find that easy in the search results because we don't recognize that you actually want to target these words. So if there's something you want to rank for, make sure that it's at least mentioned on your page somewhere. When a Google My Business account is unverified, how will it affect search? Will information from unverified accounts never be reflected in local one boxes, etc.? So the My Business stuff is more on the map side, on the maps team, so we don't really have that much insight into what happens there. These things generally don't affect the natural or the organic search results, so it's not something where you would see like a higher or lower rating for your website because of that. But we do sometimes show that in one boxes. We sometimes show that in the sidebar with the knowledge graph information that we have for individual entries. So that's something we might sometimes show there. I don't know what the effect of a verified versus unverified profile would be there. That's something you probably need to ask the Maps team about. After my redesign, Search Console recognizes buggy microformat markup on each page. Type H entry is missing properties. I didn't insert any markup. My new theme inserts markup automatically, which might be wrong. Is that a problem? I think that kind of goes into what you mentioned in the beginning. If the code is wrong, then we ignore it. That's not something you really need to fuss over too much. At the same time, if you recognize that your theme is implementing structured data incorrectly, I don't know, why not just fix it? Yeah. That's probably easier than just losing sleep over these errors that are shown in Webmaster Tools. So, I mean, on the one hand, you kind of know that you don't really need to worry about these errors in Webmaster Tools, but on the other hand, a lot of people just like to have a clean Webmaster Tools or Search Console. I should be saying Search Console more. Just like to have a clean dashboard, so few errors. So if you want to clean it out, you can do that. If you don't really care, just leave them like that.
Hey John, I have a question about, well, actually it's not a question, it's some feedback regarding search analytics and how the information is displayed. When this is especially referring to how you calculate average position, because I've noticed for several of my clients that impressions have gone up, clicks have gone up, but average position is higher. I mean, you know, the performance is lower. Let's say like that. And I noticed that if especially when I'm comparing last 7 days or last 28 days to the previous ones, and there are some keywords that no longer appear, for example, in the last 7 days versus the previous ones, those are attributed with position 0. And if I have in the previous days I have position 1, I'm seeing like -1, which is not really accurate, I guess. And also the average position is calculated using that, so that becomes a bit weird, and I don't think that's very accurate.
Yes. I noticed that yesterday, and I filed a bug with the team, and they said they already knew about this and had a fix ready for that. So I hope that should be resolved too. So I think, in short, if a keyword isn't shown at all, has no impressions, but we have previous impressions, like over time, then at the moment we show it like, oh, it's ranking #1. But actually, it wasn't shown at all, so it wasn't really ranking at all. So that's probably the mismatch that we're seeing there.
Right, because it seems like your position 0 is actually better than position 1 currently.
Yeah, yeah. It's
How you're calculating it.
not shown at all, so it shouldn't be included in the average.
Also, when in the previous, so in the old search queries report, you used to have like when comparing two dates, you used to have like the difference for each of the segments, so for clicks and for position and CTR and everything. But right now, you can only see the difference when you select only one of the 4 filters. You cannot see for clicks, positions, and impressions at the same time. You have to select just one of them, which is kind of annoying. Because if you only select position, then it kind of ranks it, sorts it a bit weird. So I want to select impressions and positions, but then I cannot see the difference automatically.
Yeah. I'll pass that on to the team, but I suspect it's just from a usability point of view, they try to kind of keep the table a little bit cleaner like that. But I don't know. Maybe there's a way that they can do that. Or maybe with the API, you can make your own way of viewing that. I think you signed up, right?
Looking forward to that.
OK, we have 5 minutes left, so let's just open it up for questions from you all.
Hey, John. I have a question about how long it takes for disavow files to become active or effective, and then when they are files are reavowed, the disavow is removed. About how long that could be expected to be effective. There was a study done by Cyrus Shepard when, an experiment where he disavowed, obviously not recommended, but disavowed all the links to his site, and then they did not become, there wasn't any big change until Penguin 2, and then there was an immediate large drop in ranking when the Penguin 2 came out, so the disavow did not appear to take any effect until Penguin rolled around, and then at Penguin 2.1 there was another big change. But the thing is he reavowed or removed that disavow file, but never got back even a fraction of the rankings, some 2 years later. And Matt Katz had previously talked about, there would be some delay there, but that sounds unreasonably long. And is it possible that because he it seemed too unnatural, like it would put up too many flags to make it effective. I mean, to remove the disavow file and then put it back up so that it seems like all those links were acquired all at the same time. So it's kind of a unnatural link effect there, or any comment on that?
You know, we looked into what happened there when he posted that post, which was a while back. I don't know, what was it? Maybe it was a year or even earlier. And from what we saw there, it was actually working the way it should be. Let me just, because I think you have echo, or we have an echo. So I think when we looked at that was essentially working the way it should be working. So for disavow file to be processed, we actually have to reprocess all the links that are pointing to it. So that takes a certain amount of time. That's something that might be involved. Another thing that's definitely involved is that we use more than just links for ranking. So we use over 200 factors, and a combination of things could come together where maybe all the links are disavowed and we drop them out of our systems, but we still see enough other strong signals to say, well, this is actually a reasonable result. And when it comes to like the web spam algorithms like Penguin, how they would react to a situation like that, that's really hard to say. It really depends a lot on what else has been happening with this website, what else has kind of been happening with those links, what links might have been missed, what links are included there, how they're included, if it's a domain-wide or just a per URL-based one. But in general, I just caution away from assuming that something that's completely unnatural like this, where someone disavows all links and then puts them back and then wonders why things are weird, I wouldn't see that as a sign that a normal website would see the same thing happening. And we put a lot of work into the disavow system, into our web spam algorithms, that they should handle normal situations fairly well. So we focus on that. And if someone comes with a situation that's completely outside of the range of what we would normally do, then of course it's really kind of unclear what actually should be happening there. So it's not something where I'd say this is a sign that Google systems are doing this, this, and this, but actually you're giving us essentially unusable input and expecting that we give you an answer about how our algorithms work as an output, which doesn't really make sense. It's not really going to happen that way from our side.
So it would be wrong to assume from that experiment that links can't be reavowed or not for an excessively long period of time, because that was just such an outlier.
Yeah, I mean, if you remove links from the disavow file, the next time we recrawl them, we'll add them back to our index, and that's the way that should be happening. But again, if you do that for like all links across the whole site, then I don't know. It's not really what our systems are meant for.
All right, thanks.
All right, one last question. We're almost over time, actually, but.
Hi, John.
All right, go for it.
I got a question. On our website, we do dynamic serving for mobile, so we've got desktop and mobile both on the same URLs. When we're doing things like schema markup, and also when we're putting in the alternate links for the app indexing, do they need to be both on the desktop and on the mobile version of our site, or is it good enough just to have it on the desktop when we're using dynamic serving?
It's good enough on the desktop, yeah. If you had separate mobile URLs, you'd also have the canonical back to the desktop, and that's where we try to pick up that link.
Okay, thanks. That's great.
All right. So with that, I guess we're out of time. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for coming along as well.
Κυρία Εκκλέζου. Και είναι τέταρτος.
And I wish you all a great weekend. Thanks again for coming by. And maybe we'll see you in one of the future Hangouts.
Yeah, it was a great hangout. It was a pleasure to be here, John.
Yeah, thanks for coming. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Pero,